Latest football news,
engaging debates,
and fascinating opinions.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio's Friday at 5 p.m. for another week of football action with your host, as always, George. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you're enjoying the lovely weather. We're getting beautiful weather and football is hitting a crunch time as well, which is a sad thing to see. When you get nice weather, the football goes away. But don't worry, we'll be back shortly. But we've got a very interesting end to the season. But before we even talk about what's coming in today's show, I better mention my co-host, as always. It is Dan. Dan, how are you doing, mate? Long time no see. But football is getting quite interesting right now.
Well, yeah, it is. Not for me, unfortunately, because we're done, aren't we?
Yeah, we're done.
But yeah,
done
it's it's good to be back again. Yeah, it's crazy that we're at the end of the season again. Another season done. It's crazy.
It's crazy how time just flies by. It is absolutely crazy. But before I mention what's coming out in today's show, I better mention the social medias. Twitter is at Pitchside Talk. Instagram is at Talk_Pitch. YouTube, Mixcolour, both at Pitchside Talk. If you want to listen back to NL Pro shows, do not worry, they're up there on YouTube and Mixcolour for you to have a listen back to whenever you like to. But so, what is coming out in today's show? Well, we're going to be talking about Ipswich Town. All things about Ipswich Town. There's been plenty of stuff happening off the pitch regarding players. Yes, this is the interesting time now of the season where we have no football, but there's quite a lot going on around the club. The Premier League game week number 36, a very interesting game week as well. And also we'll be doing a massive football roundup as well, because we've got so much football news. We just haven't got enough time to cram it in. So we're going to stick it in a massive football roundup. So when we come back, we'll be talking about Ipswich Town and what's been going on quite recently. Don't go anywhere.
stay up to date with the latest footy news.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio, Fridays at 5 p.m. with your host, as always, George, joined by my co-host, as always, Dan, for another week of football action here on IO Radio. Now, before we move on talking about the latest news from Ipswich Town itself, I better mention the social medias. Twitter is at Pitchside Talk, Instagram is at Talk_Pitch, and YouTube, Mixcolour, both at Pitchside Talk. If you want to listen back to our pre-shows, do not worry, they're all down there on YouTube and Mixcloud. And well, maybe the season has come an end for Ipswich Town on the pitch after finishing 11th place in League One, ending on a high note with a 4-0 win against Charlton. Actually, before we move on to this, Dan, I'm sorry, right? But Ipswich Town, are they now prime Barcelona because they won 4-0 against Charlton, but couldn't do that throughout the rest of the season, but did it in the final game?
I know, yeah. I mean, through most of McKenna's reign, it was kind of like one half we were played really well and one half we weren't. But this game, it was 90 minutes of just full-on great performance, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a bit strange to watch. I was like, oh, for God's sake, why couldn't we do this in previous games? It was a nice way to end the season.
Oh, it was a lovely way to end the season. I thought 10 minutes, I thought I was in a dream. I thought I was watching prime Barcelona, but I was just literally like, we lost 1-0 to Cambridge United. We could beat this team here 4-0.
Yeah.
Fun times. But, sorry, little sidetrack note that was. But the work for next season has begun. And well, we have been seeing it this week with players being released and also trying to keep 2 players as well. Yes. But we must move on to Town. They released a statement on Sunday confirming the 4 players who will be leaving the club at the end of the season, and as their contracts will not be renewed for another time. And that was James Norwood, Tom Carroll, Thomas Holy, and Miles Kenlock. And Dan, let's start off with James Norwood. We knew the striker was leaving before the game against Charlton. He announced on his social media that his time was up. He enjoyed his time and he was going away. 88 appearances, 28 goals in that time. His time won't be forgotten, as every day with him there was never a dull day. and he was always splitting opinions as always, because he kept things interesting. We'd be remembered for the weird and wonderful, way he interacted with the wrestling world. Remember that, the superstars of wrestling, Dwayne the Rock Johnson with the gifts? Yeah, long time ago.
That's kind of gone out of my memory. Jesus, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, that's a flashback. That is. Tumbling off his bike in the preseason in Germany, the first one as well.
Yeah,
and,
I remember that as well.
Scaring the teammates at training. I think we all remember that, especially on the weights.
Yeah.
And so much more. But on the pitch, he'll be remembered for a flash in the pan and what it could have been. A fast start to his career, 5 goals in 6 appearances, and then it was revealed by the then manager Paul Lambert that he was only playing at 50% fitness, because he had I think he had a groin injury, didn't he, when he joined? Was that correct? He had a groin injury, wasn't it? It was groin.
Yeah, seriously, these 3 seasons are just a blur.
Oh, well, that's good to know from our reliable town source.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember if it was his groin. It was an injury. I know that.
Well, that's good to know. It was an injury. That's just good to know from Dan. But he had 2 groin operations, and that hamstring just kicked in, which limited his game time and his performance as well, which led to the final act, the exile to the under-23s and the transfer list, which was a result this season. But he made his return back to that starting 11 in the second half of the season. And, it was brilliant to watch him back scoring goals. But Dan, this is just another case of what could it have been without all these injuries he had, because we saw what he'd done at Tranmere. It wasn't a fluke. He came to town. He scored 28 goals in 28 appearances. He ended his time at town with a beautiful goal from the world's most tightest angle. I don't think I've ever seen a goal scored tighter than that. Maybe Maicon not Barca, for Brazil against North Korea in the World Cup. But it's good to see him scoring an end. But it's just more the case, what could have been for him?
Yeah, I think so. He's definitely an interesting player and one that really divides opinion. I don't think I've seen a player quite like him at town. I feel like he had 2 kind of, it was his on-pitch stuff and his off-pitch stuff. He was kind of very vocal on social media, wasn't he? And I know that some fans and managers didn't like that at all. I kind of tried to focus away from what he did off the pitch and focused on what he did on the pitch. And he was definitely an influential player. I think he's a natural goal scorer. And when he got the chance, he, showed that he could do that. As you say, injuries kind of didn't help him. But, this season, I think under Lambert, it was Lambert who signed him, wasn't it?
It was,
I do actually forget that Lambert actually signed him, and that in that first season, as you say, he kind of got off to a flying start, and his partnership with Jackson that season was, at least in the first half of the season, was crucial to us. But he kind of was just in and out then. But this season, he came back under McKenna, and he scored goals straight away. And I think he said when he left, he's gone away feeling proud and felt that he scored goals. And in my personal opinion, I'm going to miss him. I think he's that presence you need up front. He's a nuisance, and you need that in a side. And he always gave 100%. I think he definitely looked fitter in the last season that he was here compared to when he first joined. But he always put the effort in, and I'm sure he will succeed whatever club he goes to, whether it be League One or even maybe League Two. Maybe a top League Two team will go for him. I'm sure he'll score goals wherever he goes. So I think it's a shame, but I do understand why he's moving on. But let's hope that he succeeds at whatever club he goes to.
Yes, we do hope it. We do wish him the best for wherever he does move next. And I do agree with you, actually. I think he's the master of the dark arts of football. If I could be honest, there's not many players, but he's definitely one of them. We're seeing it when if he comes on, it's either going to be score a goal or a yellow card. It's never it's never one or the other. You see what I mean?
Exactly.
I'm watching him, but he will be missed after his 3-year spell at the club. And the next player to be released was Tom Carroll, the player who joined in the summer on a 1-year contract and was the 16th signing in that hectic demolition, rebuild the house summer. I can't remember what it's called now. That summer window, when the midfielder joined the trio of Evans, Harper, and El Mazzuni, who were already at the club, who signed that same summer as well. Not El Mazzuni, he was already there prior to that summer. But he was already out of favour 2 weeks in after Sam Morsey joined 2 weeks later, which saw him, dropped out the squad and I don't want to play with you anymore, sort of meme vibes. But he showed flashes of his quality in the midfield, but struggled to produce it week in, week out. And when asked to sit a little bit deeper to let Morsey attack, that wasn't his game either. Dan, Tom Carroll, I don't really know how to describe him, if I could be honest. He made 17 appearances for Town in his time. He had his good days, but he had more bad days. But he felt like he was a piece of a puzzle we needed in the rebuilding, but he just couldn't find his place and fit into his Town starting 11 when asked to come in. And, as we saw, dropped for Morsey, then dropped for Backinson. It was, I think, right type of player, but wrong time for him.
Yeah, maybe. And, he has potential, and he's played in the Premier League before. And I thought he was quite a good signing when he joined, but it just didn't work out for him, unfortunately. I think he had a few good games, but I mean, I think he was quite a negative player, and I'm not saying. I think he prefers. I mean, he passed backwards a lot, didn't he? I think that's the main thing, and that just wasn't our game this season. I think under Lambert or even Mick McCarthy probably would have suited the style of play, but under Cook and McKenna, it just wasn't his. It just wasn't his type of style, and it just didn't work. And whenever I saw him on the team sheet, I was like, it's going to be a bit of a negative performance. And obviously, it's not all to do with him. I'm not putting all the blame on all of our terrible performances on him. That sounded a bit horrible, but yeah, I wasn't a fan of him, unfortunately, and I'm not. I guess I regret that it didn't really work out here. But again, he didn't really. There was always players ahead of him. Morsey, Evans when he was fit, and then Backinson when he came in, he was ahead of him as well. So it was just unfortunate that he didn't get to the ground running and didn't get the chance to show what he could do. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not upset that he's been moved on, and obviously good luck to him wherever he goes. But I just wasn't a fan of him, unfortunately. I guess that's it, basically. I mean, he's, as you say, you don't really know how to explain him. He's kind of one of them players that comes in, doesn't really do anything, and then just goes after a year. He's kind of that type of player, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's not really settled.
No.
Settled into the club. But we do wish him the best for the future as well. But I think me struggling for words at the moment basically describes his impact on the squad. Because I don't really know, to be honest.
No.
Bit of an interesting case. An interesting case, I think that's what we can call Tom Carroll. But moving on to the next player who was released, that was Thomas Holy, the big goalkeeper. We love him so much, the big goalkeeper. He said his goodbyes after a wonderful adventure, which saw him make 65 appearances and keeping 28 clean sheets across those 3 seasons. But before this start of the season, he fell out really of the current two, with Halaki coming in and Walton as well, only making 3 cup appearances this season before heading off to Port Vale on loan, which only saw him make 9 appearances there for them. They're in League Two. Yikes. Dan, an interesting case, Thomas Holy. You know, he was loved by the fans in his time at the club. We know how much he was loved. He's the BFG, big friendly giant. He was at the club, but on the pitch was a very different story. We saw performances of brilliance from him. I think especially that first half of his first season at the club, he was on fire. And then the second half, he was dropped for Will Norris for some very strange reason, maybe something to do with getting money knocked off his loan clause when he was on loan from Wolves at the time. But he then came back in that second season, in that sort of no fans COVID season, and well, the mistakes were week in or week out for Thomas Holy. Really, really big costly mistakes that cost Town a lot of points in trying to push for the playoffs, which then ultimately saw him got dropped from the top 2 altogether, loaned out, and it's just come to an end like this. I wouldn't call it wonderful, if I could be honest, for him.
No, it's such a sad thing to say with Holy, because as you say, when he first came in, we all loved him. I mean, I think we all knew from the start that he wasn't the most talented keeper in the world, but he was loved by us fans in that first season. I don't think he's a bad goalkeeper at all. I think there's obviously better goalkeepers out there, and we've found a goalkeeper, actually probably 2 goalkeepers better than him. But he wasn't a terrible goalkeeper, and there was just a lot of flaws to his game. I've never seen a keeper so tall with, can't command his box really. You'd think, is he 6'9" or something?
Yeah,
6'7". Yeah, 6'9". You'd think he'd be able to command his area, but we didn't really see that. He didn't really come out and catch crosses and stuff like that. But I think he had a few decent games. He was decent at saving. I guess easy saves you expect him to make. Let's just say that. But yeah, it just didn't go to plan, did it? He made a lot of mistakes in that lockdown season, as you say, and it just didn't go to plan for him in the end. And again, I think we've got 2 goalkeepers here, if Halaki stays, that is, that are better than him, and I'm happy with the keepers we have. So yeah, I think he's been a good servant to this club. I think his passion is definitely not in doubt. I think he loved being here, but I just think there's better goalkeepers out there, unfortunately. And again, good luck to him wherever he goes. It's a shame he didn't really, get to where he wanted to be at Port Vale. But let's see if a team comes in for him. I'm sure they will.
I'm sure somebody will come in for him, I'm sure his future will be safe and sound. We'll probably see him next season in another league. Maybe. And lastly, but not least, is Miles Kenlock. The Ipswich graduate has departed the club after, quite frankly, a mixed spell at the club. But he leaves as part of a unique and exclusive club. He has made 103 appearances for Ipswich Town, making him only one of 10 players who have graduated from the club's academy to do the same as well. So well done to him. Round of applause. He's made it into a club. Yeah, you don't unfortunately want anything for it. You don't get a medal or a nice little certificate. Just get a little stat. But his time, Dan, I think will be remembered for, bursting onto the scene, but never really establishing himself as a long-term starter at left back. Whenever there was another manager there, any of the managers, they always tried to sign somebody else, and they did. We look at Knudsen under Mick McCarthy. Kenlock was second best. Lambert, he had Callum Elder. Remember him? Oh gosh, Callum Elder. Oh, flash from the past there. Luke Garbutt and Josh Earl as his left back. He didn't fancy Kenlock at all, despite giving Kenlock the most appearances throughout his time at the club. And then we had most recently with Penny and Thompson under Cook and McKenna. But he has had that loan spell at Colchester, very quite successful loan spell. I think 20 appearances, 3 goals, 1 assist in his time in League Two in the second half of the season. But for him, it's just a case of he just couldn't really find his feet under any of the managers. And he was always just second best.
Yeah, he was, unfortunately. And I didn't mind Kenlock as a attacking fullback. I think he was quite weak defensively, but I think going forward he had quite a bit of pace. But as you say, he just was always second choice left back under all the managers he's played under. Knudsen, as you say, remember Knudsen with his long throw. But he was always ahead of Kenlock. Elder, and I completely forgot about Elder. Under Lambert and Garbutt and Earl, obviously, as you say. But this season, obviously, I think he was unregistered, wasn't he? But wasn't fancied. And he's a player that I'll be honest, I completely forgot he was still our player. And I looked at the running order today and thought, Jesus, I completely forgot about Kenlock. He was one that left. And it's crazy to think that he's made over 100 appearances for Town. It doesn't feel like that at all, but a really good prospect for us, I think he was, and a decent player. I don't think he did anything wrong his time here. As I say, a little bit weak defensively, but obviously as he gets older, that's things he can work on, and I'm sure he's definitely a player that I can see doing well at League Two level if he goes back to Colchester. So yeah, good luck to him as well. It's kind of just didn't work out here. Wasn't really first choice under any manager, but will surely get a chance at another club at being first choice left back. I'm sure he will, because he's a decent player.
Yeah, he is a decent player. He's shown it in League Two in the second half of the season. We do wish him as well best for his career, as he is at a Town, a graduate academy player as well. We all do hope they do well as well. And 4 players being released, but there is 6 players who, are out of contract this season. And 2 of those players, we have no news about them. And that is, Kenlock again, Jackson and Tyrese Simpson. But we can sort of confirm there is talks as Town are trying to work to keep both strikers for next season. But Dan, we'll start first with Kane Jackson. His time at Ipswich Town has been a bit like Marmite. Some like him, some don't. And before Kieran McKenna walked through the door, it looked like his time was heading out the exit door. Really just struggling, not really finding his feet. We all sort of knew he wanted to leave the season beforehand, but that didn't fall through with that move to Bournemouth. But under Kieran McKenna, he has looked rejuvenated and proving quite a good fit in his system before that hamstring injury against Portsmouth put an end to his season. But would you be quite happy with seeing him stay? I know some fans don't like him, some fans do. We've seen his quality hasn't been there recently, but would he be a good signing because he's a good fit in McKenna's system?
I mean, yeah, I think so, and I think I've said on this show numerous times that I don't think I rate Jackson. I really do. I think he wasn't treated very well this season under Paul Cook, and he himself said that. I think he said he wanted to leave. He wasn't happy here, and being in the under 23s for most training with them as well is gonna do that to you. But under McKenna, he came in and really showed what he could do. He scored a few goals and really looked suited to that position in McKenna's style. And obviously McKenna likes them pacey players, so I'm not surprised that we're looking to give him an extension. I think he's a player that McKenna really likes, and I wouldn't be upset at all seeing him back next season. I think I wouldn't have him as a starting striker that scores a lot of goals, because I just don't think that's his game. But as an impact player, I think he'd be perfectly suited to that job. And obviously, as I say, McKenna likes him and wants him to stay. So, yeah, I've got no qualms about that. I think he's obviously a player that some people don't like. And I can understand why. I don't think his first touch is great, and his end product sometimes lacks a little bit. But, he's shown numerous times that he can score goals, and he's got that pace on a defender. And I think in League One, there's a lot of slow defenders in this league. I think we've seen. So to have that pace about you, it's a really good asset to have in League One. So, yeah, I'd be happy to see him here next season. I hope he does sign that contract, and I'm sure he will.
Yes, let's hope he does sign that contract. And lastly is the curious case of Tyree Simpson. The striker was on loan at Swindon Town this season, banging the goals left, right, and centre, netting 9 times in 25 games for the League Two side. I think he netted a few more goals, but that was in the cup competitions before being recalled back to play in the under-23 side, visitors Town, and not even getting a look at the first team, which sort of led to him and his agent expressing their desire to leave the club next season. But Town are expected to take up their option on the striker to keep him for another 12 months, I believe. But Dan, with only Piggott at the moment, the only striker that is under contract at Town, of Jackson's deal is having good talks, but nothing concrete just yet if he's going to be staying or not. But with Piggott, the only striker left at Town at the moment, is this the time for Tyree Simpson to have his big break that he's been desperate for? But it's going to be a bit weird, really, because he wants to leave. He don't want to be here, to be honest. And if he don't want to be here and he's going to get out a big break, that's going to cause a little bit of friction, isn't it?
I'm sure it will. And I can't help but feel a bit sorry for Tyree Simpson. He was, enjoying his football down in League Two at Swindon. He was scoring goals. And I was very surprised when I saw we'd recalled him. I thought he must have been in McKenna's plans, but he wasn't even on the bench for any of the games when he got recalled. So it was a really, really odd one. And then I see that we might, trigger an extension on his contract, and I was like, really? That's such a weird thing. But I guess, striker is priority this summer. So if he is at the club next season, I can't really see him getting into the first team, unfortunately. I guess if he does stay, we'll see how he does in pre-season. But in my opinion, I feel like if he wants to leave, we haven't really treated him in the best of ways, I don't think. We should just let him find a new club. He's definitely got potential, and he's one of them players that's got a physical presence up front. He can obviously score goals at League Two level. It's not proven at this level. But I think the fact that we'll be looking for a goal scorer this summer, and a player we'll probably be looking for more than one striker. As Piggott's the only other striker at the club, I just don't think he's going to get that look in, unfortunately. So I think it's worth looking elsewhere for him. But who am I to say that? If McKenna wants him to stay, if he's in his plans, then I guess fair enough. But yeah, I don't know. I just haven't seen enough of him to really have a opinion on him. I've seen him come off the bench a few times. I think, in final games in the season. But I haven't really seen him too much. I just know he had a good time at Swindon, and we kind of took that away from him, which was unfortunate for him. But yeah, I'd like to see him happy wherever he is. And if he's here, then is he going to get a look in? I don't know.
Yes, it's an interesting case of Tyree Simpson, that is, at the moment. And well, that's all for your Ipswich Town news this week. Some interesting thoughts there from Dan on the players that have been released and the players at the Town are trying to retain in the process. Let us know on Pitch Talk what you think as well. And well, when we come back, we'll be talking about the Premier League next game week, number 36. After quite a few interesting game weeks, this one here has been crunch time at the top and down the bottom. So we'll be back in a few moments.
Pitchside Talk.
Hello.
On IO Radio.
Here on IO Radio, Fridays at 5 p.m. with your host, always George, joined by my co-host as well, Dan, for another week of football action. And well, before we move on talking about the Premier League this week, I better mention the social medias. Twitter is at Pitchside Talk, Instagram's at Talk_Pitch, YouTube, Mixcloud are both at Pitchside Talk. And if you missed anything from today's show, us talking about Is It Town, do not worry. Do not worry. 6 p.m. on Friday, this show will be out on YouTube and Mixcloud for you to listen back to. If you've missed anything from today's show, do not worry, it'll be up there. And well, after a thrilling last few game weeks, which have seen jam-packed with action and twists and turns, game week 36 was crunch time in terms of the title running, the top four race, and the battle to survive the relegation zone this season. Some interesting results. So let's have a look at the results. And starting off with Saturday, we had Brentford winning 3-0 against Southampton, Burnley losing 3-1 to Aston Villa, Chelsea drawing 2-2 to Wolves under their new owners. Yes, Chelsea have new owners. Crystal Palace relegating Watford in a 1-0 loss for the Hornets. They're down now to the Championship. Brighton winning 4-0 against Manchester United. Yes, 4 against United. What's going on? And Liverpool drawing it 1-1 to Spurs, denting their title hopes. Arsenal got a win against Leeds, elevating their top 4 hopes, but also putting Leeds in a danger of a relegation. Everton helped their hopes by winning 2-1 against Leicester, jumping outside the relegation and putting Leeds in the process. West Ham hit 4 against Norwich, and Manchester City hit 5 against Newcastle. And then for Tuesday night, we saw a 2-1 win for Liverpool against Aston Villa. Stevie G's side couldn't get the win against Liverpool. Leeds losing 3-0 to Chelsea, keeping them in the relegation zone. Leicester winning 3-0 against Norwich. Watford and Everton drawing 0-0, and Man City hitting 5 against Wolves in a 5-1 win. Dan, starting off first with Aston Villa versus Liverpool. Liverpool, they retain that pressure on Manchester City, the Premier League leaders, as they survived what could be easily described as an early scare, coming back to win it against Aston Villa, conceding the first 3 minutes, then Massive and Mane saving the day. But they keep putting this pressure on here, City, but they're getting the results, which is the main thing, but they just don't look convincing in games, which is probably not helpful for Liverpool fans.
It's not now. I'm sure you of all people are getting nervous at these games. But yeah, it's when you can see that early, you get that worry. But obviously Liverpool hit back quite quickly. But as you say, it's not looking convincing. I mean, Manchester City are thrashing teams. Liverpool just got past Aston Villa, obviously drew against Tottenham, which was I'd say a disappointing result in that one. But I think getting any win at this point in the season, no matter how they come, is massive. And if Liverpool want to stay in touching distance of Man City, then they need to win in any way that they can. So to scrape that win, I'm not saying that they were lucky to win it or anything. I'm sure they weren't, but yeah, any win is a win at this point in the table, and I'm sure Liverpool fans will be happy with that one. The 2-1 win they'll definitely take. And there's a break this weekend, obviously, but it's back to business in the Premier League. It's going to be a huge last few games for them.
Yes, it could be a huge last few games. I think that just comes down to how many games they played this season. And they're fighting on all fronts, which is unheard of for any side. But yeah, Manchester City, the game next. And they had to respond as Liverpool responded to them, going back, level them on points, but City ahead due to their almighty goal difference. I think it was 3 at the time. But Kevin De Bruyne's 4-goal haul helped Man City thump Wolves in a 5-1 win, which saw them restore that lead, that 3-point lead at the top of the table, which now means Pep Guardiola's side only needs 4 points from the final 2 games to secure the title, their 4th title in 5 seasons. Dan, Man City edging ever closer now to that Premier League trophy. Kevin De Bruyne masterclass coming in handy for them. They only now need 4 points from the last 2 games. But if they get a win against West Ham on Sunday, Then Liverpool play again on Tuesday against Southampton and lose that. The title will be theirs. But for Man City, they're just showing their dominance, but they can't win in they struggle, they're showing their dominance in the league after that disappointing loss in the Champions League.
Yeah, that was disappointing in the Champions League and disappointing for me, as I said on the show. I just was desperate for a all English final, but nah. But yeah, in the league, Manchester City they're just doing what they need to do. It's theirs to lose at the moment, and what they've scored 14 goals in 3 games now in the Premier League. They're just smashing teams, and it's all they need to do is just keep that momentum going, and they'll win it, and they definitely look in the driving seat to do that. So this win against Wolves, I mean, De Bruyne scoring 4 goals. I've said so many times how much I love De Bruyne. He's my favourite player in the Premier League, and to see him score 4, it just seems like nothing can stop them. They just need to win. Just keep how they're going, don't they? And they'll do it. And I'm sure it's a massive disappointment in Europe for them. But winning the league is going to be massive for them as well, I'm sure.
Yes, it'd be massive for them. And now we better look at the bottom half of the table and in that relegation battle, which has seen lots of twisted turns. But for Leeds, it looks like it might be doom and gloom for them after they suffered deja vu, according to Jesse March, after his side conceded early and had a player sent off in a 3-0 defeat to Chelsea. They still remain in that relegation zone with 2 games to go, but Burnley have a game in hand over them, and the same for Everton. They are, how can I put this to you? They're on 34 points, but their goal difference is minus 21 compared to Burnley's. Dan, the end is nearly here for Leeds. Deja vu, suffering them again. Another player sent off, straight red, ridiculous by Dan James and ridiculous by Luke Ayling as well, and that loss to Arsenal. But for Leeds, it's just all crumbling around them. It's what's going on with this club. It's ridiculous, that brilliant finish they had in the first season, and this season, it's all falling apart.
It is, yeah. I mean, I don't think I was expecting this to happen. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were talking about Everton or Burnley, weren't we? But now Leeds are probably favourite to go down. It's crazy how much of a turn in form it's just really poor from them. I think when they sacked Bielsa, I was surprised. But, they were... I guess signing a manager who hadn't really had any experience in English football to try and keep them up maybe was a bit of a stretch. But, there's still time for them to get results. Their last 3 games were against decent sides, obviously. So there's still time. But it's not looking good for them, unfortunately. They've got 2 games that they could... playing Brighton is going to be tough. I think they've got Brentford as well away, which is tough for them. So it's crunch time, and let's see what they can do. But it's not looking good for them, is it? With Everton winning games, it's going to be tough.
Yes, it is going to be tough for them. And that is all we've got time for the Premier League roundup this week. We will have the more coverage of the Premier League next week in next week's show, which will be the one before the final game week of the season in the Premier League. And when we come back, we're just going to have enough time here to do a big football roundup. So don't go anywhere.
Pitchside Talk, footy debate from the Premier League Outback.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on iRadio, Fridays at 5 p.m. with your host, as always, George, joined by my co-host as well, Dan, for another week of football action here on Pitchside Talk. And now, before we move on doing our massive football roundup, I better mention the social medias. Twitter, it's at Pitchside Talk. Instagram's at Talk_Pitch. YouTube, Mixcloud, both at Pitchside Talk. If you missed anything from today's show, do not worry. Be up on YouTube, Mixcloud in a few minutes' time at 6 p.m. And now, Dan, it is time to do Football roundup. Hey. You like a little drum roll? I just thought that on the spot. Who needs sound effects when you could do it yourself? Saves time and money every single time. And sounds awful in the process. But Dan, I hear you want to start first with some news.
Yes, and we're going to go down to League One as well for some manager news. We've got a bit of a change of managers in League One, and we'll start off with Lincoln. They've announced their new manager, or new head coach actually, is Mark Kennedy, former Ipswich Town player actually, is going there. I think he was he coaching. He started coaching at Ipswich, and I think, did he say he went to Manchester City as well?
Yes,
coached a bit there. So an interesting appointment, I guess. Another kind of up and coming young manager coming through, going to his first major job. It'll be interesting to see how he does to replace Michael Appleton, who I think he had quite a tough season with Lincoln this year, hasn't he? So it would be really interesting to see how he gets on at Lincoln, because I think he was Birmingham assistant under Lee Bowyer as well. So let's see how that goes.
Yes, let's see how that goes. And I've got some news for you, and it's regarding a player signing for a club he's currently on loan at, and that is Philip Coutinho. It has now been made permanent that he will sign for Aston Villa for next season. Run a deal running to the end of 2026 for £17 million. Stephen Gerrard has commented saying he is a model professional, and his impact on the group has been very clear since joining in January. This is a brilliant sign for Aston Villa. A brilliant move for everybody all around. I think for Philip Coutinho as well, going to Aston Villa. He's done quite well in his time there, scoring 4 goals and 3 assists in the past 8 games. So he's been looking quite good for Villa and very dangerous. I'd be interested to see what he does next season with a full campaign behind him. And Dan, what have you got up next?
Yeah, so we got another bit of League One news, and a bit of a very surprising bit of League One news, I think, in that former Celtic midfielder Scott Brown became Fleetwood manager today, which was really, really surprising. I mean, he's played 24 games this season for Aberdeen. He's gone straight into first team manager at Fleetwood. So a really, really interesting appointment there. I can already imagine what his teams are going to be like in League One. I don't think you want to go up against the Scott Brown team, but yeah, let's see how that goes. I'd say that's a bit of a gamble from Fleetwood to go with such a inexperienced manager. Yeah, that's the word I'm trying to say. But you never know; it could turn out well. But yeah, I just wouldn't want to play against the Scott Brown team. As I say, I imagine it's going to be very hard to play against.
I think we should say feisty.
Yeah, feisty.
Is the word,
there
feisty.
You go. Yeah.
I have to say, right, this is giving me such Joey Barton flashbacks here.
Yeah,
when they had,
I know.
When they had him as their manager. Very interesting point there by Fleetwood. And my bit of news is next that Yarmolenko, the West Ham winger, the Ukrainian winger, is set to leave West Ham at the end of the season with his contract running out. Reported that David Moyes has made his decision to let him leave at the end of his deal, being one of the highest earners in that West Ham squad after he joined under Mangrel Pellegrini from Borussia Dortmund back in 2018. In that time, he's made 30 appearances and scoring 3 goals. And 2 of those goals came against Aston Villa and Seville, and that emotional return for him following getting time off to deal with the ongoing issues in Ukraine after Russia invaded them not so long ago. But we do hope that he does find another club soon, because he is a good winger, and he will be missed in the Premier League. And Dan, what have you got up next for us? Dan, have you got any more news? I can't remember.
I mean, I can do.
I just remember something about Blackburn this week.
Blackburn?
There's something about Blackburn this week. Do you remember something about Blackburn, the manager?
Oh,
yes.
God, what am I thinking?
I know.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Even I remembered.
Goodness. Oh my goodness. What am I thinking of? Tony Mowbray. he leaves Blackburn after a really long time, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting decision, because I think he's doing pretty well at Blackburn. I think I think they just got bored of him. Really, he hasn't really got them up to where they want to be. But I mean, if we didn't have McKenna, I wouldn't mind taking him back. Bring him back to Ipswich. That'd be a decent appointment, I think. Yeah, but yeah, that's another interesting. I completely forgot.
I can't believe you just said.
I know.
You choose him over Kieran McKenna. That's what I'm.
No, I didn't say that. I said if we didn't have McKenna. If we didn't.
Did it? Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Now I see. Okay. And the last bit of news I've got for this week on Football Roundup is VAR is going to be introduced in the Championship playoff final at Wembley for the first time. The English Football League has confirmed. So either, Lincoln or Huddersfield versus Sheffield United or Huddersfield. Nottingham Forest will experience VAR for the first time in a playoff final on the 29th of May. And there's still ongoing discussions whether it be in the League One and League Two playoff final as well. That would be interesting. I think there'll be that monitor every 5 minutes, to be perfectly honest, with how League One and League Two teams play. No disrespect to them and no criticism of them at all. And that is all for your Football Roundup news this week, and also for the show this week. Dan, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the show this week. Will I see you next week, where we'll be talking all things football, as I like to say?
Yeah, I'll be back. There'll probably, I doubt there'll be any Ipswich news next week. It'll be a bit of a strange one. But yeah, I'll be there next week.
Yeah, he'll be there as always. I'll be there as well. And I want to thank you very much for listening to the show this week. If you missed any of the show this week, do not worry. It'll be up on YouTube and Scout in the next few moments. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram as well at Pitchside Talk to keep up to date with all our latest content as well. And I want to thank Dan for joining me this week. I've been George as well. Thank you very much for joining us this week. We'll see you next week, and ciao.
Yeah.
The whistle has been blown for full time. Tune in next week for another jam-packed show.